After 20 years of loyal service, Mark expected a simple farewell, but instead, he was erased and forgotten by the very people he'd devoted his life to supporting. When he discovers the truth behind his missing retirement party, Mark refuses to go quietly. His last act shakes the company to its core and inspires a wave of respect across an entire industry. This is the story of how one man turned quiet betrayal into unforgettable closure, and made sure his legacy could never be erased. I gave them everything. 20 years of my life, my weekends, late nights, even holidays, all poured into keeping our systems running like clockwork. I was the guy people called when something broke at 3 a.m., and I always picked up. I didn't do it for praise. I did it because I took pride in it. Because I believed in loyalty. In being dependable. And I thought, stupidly, maybe that loyalty meant something back. My name's Mark. I'm an IT manager, or, well, I was. This week's my last at the company. Retirement. Not because I'm old, I'm 58, but because I finally hit that point where I could step away. I'd been saving, planning. My wife and I already booked the cruise. I imagined the moment I'd walk out of the building one last time, coworkers clapping, maybe a silly slideshow, a couple jokes at my expense, then drinks. That kind of farewell. Simple. Earned. A few people had hinted that something was being planned. The office manager, Kelsey, had come to me a month ago and said, "We're working on a send-off, but Q4 budgets are tight. Mind helping out a little with catering?" I didn't think twice. I said yes and handed over my corporate card. She swore it was temporary and that I'd be reimbursed. That was 4 weeks ago. Since then, it's been quiet. Too quiet. No calendar invites. No official emails. I told myself it was just part of the surprise. My team had always been a little awkward with emotions, maybe they didn't know how to say goodbye. I figured the big moment would come on my last day. In the meantime, I found myself growing oddly sentimental. I'd pause before shutting my monitor down at night, just looking at the familiar screen. My name on the login. The code I'd built. The little quirks in the infrastructure that only I understood. It was like watching your childhood home go up for sale, familiar and distant all at once. I even cleaned out my own desk in preparation. Took home the framed photo of my dog. The small cactus I kept forgetting to water. Left only the essentials. But as the final days ticked down, something started gnawing at me. The director, Alan, walked by me twice on Thursday and didn't say a word. He usually gave me a pat on the back and some variation of, "You holding us all together, Mark." This time, nothing. I told myself I was being paranoid. That they were just keeping the surprise airtight. That tomorrow, Friday, would be the day everything came together. That someone, somewhere, was icing a cake with my name on it. That all the silence was just the deep breath before the standing ovation. I didn't know it yet, but what was waiting for me on Friday wasn't silence. It was erasure Friday morning. My last day. I woke up early, pressed my best shirt, even shaved, something I didn't always bother with since remote days became the norm. But this felt like a day worth showing up for. I told my wife I might be late, depending on how long the party lasted. She smiled and reminded me to take pictures. When I pulled into the office parking lot, it was half full already. That was unusual. Our team never showed up early unless there was a fire drill or free food. Maybe that was the clue I needed. Maybe they were decorating or setting up. I walked in expecting, I don't know, balloons? A card on my desk? At the very least, a "hey, big day," from someone. But the elevator ride was silent. The lobby was quiet. And when I reached my floor and stepped into the main office space, my heart sank. My desk, the one I'd sat at for 2 decades, was empty. Not cleaned out by me, empty. Cleared. Erased. The monitor was gone. Cables tucked away. Drawers wiped. Even the chair was missing. It was like no one had ever sat there. I stood frozen for a second. Then wandered to the IT closet, thinking maybe they moved my things as a prank. But that was wishful thinking. The closet was locked and my access badge didn't work. I checked my email. Nothing. No calendar invites. No farewell message. No thank you from HR. Just a weekly newsletter about cross-department synergy workshops. I walked to the kitchenette hoping someone would be there. Anyone. It was empty too. But the trash bin was full of catering receipts and empty coffee boxes. Weird. I started to feel like I was in a dream. That slow burn kind where everything feels normal until you notice the details. The ones that don't make sense. The kind of dream that turns into a nightmare only when you stop making excuses. I was halfway back to my desk, or, well, where my desk used to be, when I heard footsteps. A young guy, probably early 20s, in a crisp shirt and skinny tie, walked out of the hallway, startled to see me. "Oh hey. Mark, right?" I nodded. He looked nervous. "I thought you retired already," he said. "They told me you left yesterday." "What?" I asked. He winced. "Sorry, I just started 2 weeks ago. I didn't mean anything. I just figured you'd be at the party." "What party?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He pointed upward. "Executive lounge. Big thing going on. Slides, speeches, the works. Thought it was for you at first, but it's a team evolution thing. Kinda weird your name didn't come up." My stomach dropped. I muttered a quick thanks and turned away before he could say more. I didn't go up right away. I sat down on a random bench in the hallway. My hands trembled. My mind raced. I'd paid for catering. I trained half the people upstairs. I built the system that tracked internal budgets. And now they were throwing a celebration the day I was supposed to retire without me. Not even a mention of my name. I stood up slowly. Pressed the elevator button. If they wanted to forget me, fine. But I wanted to see it with my own eyes. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt longer than usual. My reflection in the mirrored walls looked unfamiliar, pale, stiff, eyes darting like I was about to face an execution, not a party. The doors slid open, and the sound hit me first. Laughter. Glasses clinking. Applause. I stepped out, but kept to the corner. The hallway curved just enough to let me peek into the lounge without being seen. What I saw knocked the wind out of me. The place was decked out like a company milestone gala. Massive banners hung from the ceiling that read "Welcome the New Era" and "Team Evolution, the future is now." There was a full catering spread, shrimp platters, charcuterie boards, a carving station. My stomach twisted when I saw the logo on the catering uniforms, the exact company I'd booked last month with my corporate card. And then I saw the slideshow. Not of me. No photos of the 20 years I'd spent here, no thank you messages. Just glossy images of new hires, group photos of younger managers, and buzzwords like agile, forward-thinking, and streamlined talent. I spotted Alan, the director, holding court near the front. He raised a glass and made a toast I could barely hear, but what came next cut through the noise like a razor. One of the VPs leaned toward him and joked, loud enough for a few around to laugh, "Well, at least he won't be around to slow things down anymore." The others chuckled. Someone else muttered something about dead weight. They clinked their glasses together and took a sip. And that was it. I stepped back before I could be seen. My body buzzed, not with anger yet, but something colder. Numbness. Clarity. I wasn't retired. I'd been erased. No farewell. No dignity. They'd hijacked the moment and used it as a launchpad for their future, and made damn sure I wasn't part of it. The worst part? They used the system I built, literally and figuratively, to do it. My budget. My accounts. My infrastructure. I didn't storm in. I didn't yell. I just stood there for a moment, collecting myself, then turned around and walked back to the elevator. I pressed the button with a calm I didn't feel. I already knew where I was going. Not home. Not back to my ghost of a desk. I had one last login left. One final access point they hadn't thought to revoke. And I was going to use it. Not to get even. But to remind them of one thing. You don't get to bury a man while he's still breathing. There was a cafe 2 blocks from the office with terrible coffee and decent Wi-Fi. I'd gone there for years during maintenance windows or when I needed quiet. The place hadn't changed, same chipped mugs, same humming fridge in the corner. I ordered a black coffee and took the booth near the back. My laptop booted fast. Of course it did, I'd optimized it myself. I still had access. No one had thought to lock me out. They'd written me off so completely, they forgot the system I designed still recognized me as the highest level admin. I stared at the screen, then opened the shell. At first, I didn't type anything. Just sat there, breathing. I wasn't angry. Not the kind of anger that burns hot and wild. This was different. This was cold. Focused. Like flipping a switch in my head. I started by pulling up the corporate catering vendor dashboard. The event on the 9th floor was listed there, under my credentials, charged to my department. No signatures. No name swap. They just reused my open purchase order and hoped no one would notice. Cancel. Then I accessed the file directory permissions. All those glossy slides? Pulled directly from a shared drive I'd organized. I revoked access in chunks. Department by department. 1 minute they'd be seeing their shiny future, next minute, blank screens. Next, Slack. I had archived backups of every channel, a safety protocol I'd implemented years ago. I searched for keywords. Mark. Old guy. Legacy junk. It didn't take long. Screenshots, clips, jokes. One manager sent a gif of a dinosaur with the caption, "Mark finally retiring. Evolution wins." That same guy was in the front row at the party, smiling wide. I gathered receipts. Emails. Approvals. Even a clip of the VP's toast, recorded by a junior analyst and backed up automatically to our shared cloud. I compiled it all into a secure folder and wrote a scheduled email set to go live in 45 minutes. Subject: retirement should be earned. Not erased. Attached: everything. I included one line at the top of the message. To those who thought I'd disappear quietly, you should have read the fine print in the system. Then I turned to the master console. The same backend I'd built, maintained, and secured for 2 decades. The one that powered internal communication, access control, and room bookings, including that very lounge they were celebrating in. I didn't delete anything. That would be petty. I just locked it all down. Not forever, just long enough for them to feel it. 10 minutes of blackout. Just enough to make a point. As a final touch, I uploaded a small video file to the screen loop system, the TVs scattered throughout the building. Timed for 11:35 a.m. exactly when the VP's second toast would be starting. Then I closed the laptop. Sipped my bitter coffee. And waited. At 11:35 a.m. on the dot, the building choked. It started with the catering crew. I imagine they were right in the middle of carving the roast beef when the lead chef got a ping on his tablet, payment declined. Seconds later, his assistant checked her phone and saw the event was flagged as unauthorized. Per policy, they packed up immediately. No refunds. No food left behind. That's in their contract, the one I helped draft during our last procurement overhaul. Then the slides vanished. Every executive tablet flickered black. The laptops they'd set up on podiums froze mid-transition. The words "Welcome the new era" hung on screen, stuttering, then disappeared. Slack crashed next. Conversations cut mid-sentence. Panic emojis flooded the air. Frantic DMs about outage protocols bounced around with no reply. IT, the junior team I trained, was clueless. Their access terminated 30 minutes earlier without warning. Then came the screens. All across the building, from the executive lounge to the reception monitors, a single video began to play. No music. Just a slow fade in of a photo, me at my desk, surrounded by wires and monitors, grinning like a fool during an office Halloween party from years ago. Then a line of text. To the man they forgot. From the system he built. Images scrolled by old team photos, server rooms I'd wired by hand, screenshots of me patiently walking interns through command line prompts. The kind of legacy no one had cared to remember. Until now. And the emails hit inboxes. The entire company. That simple subject line. Retirement should be earned. Not erased. Then the receipts. Quotes from the VP. Screenshots from Slack. A timeline of the budget usage, down to the invoice for the cake they were probably halfway through when it all came down. The room must have gone silent. HR would scramble. Legal would panic. And someone, maybe that same office manager who asked me for my card, would realize she just made the biggest mistake of her career. But I wasn't there for it. I didn't need to be. I walked out of the cafe with no celebration, no confetti, no applause. Just the sound of the door chime as I stepped into the daylight. And my phone buzzed. A LinkedIn notification. A message from a CTO at a competitor I'd once interviewed with, years ago. It read, "Saw what happened. Respect. Let's talk." I didn't respond to the LinkedIn message right away. I just stared at it for a while as I walked, letting the city swallow me up. I passed the office building one last time. From the sidewalk, I could see people moving in the windows, hurried, frantic. Screens dark. Curtains being pulled. The executive floor looked more like a crisis zone than a celebration. Good. I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I wasn't that kind of man. But sometimes the only way to be seen is to let the lights go out. By the time I got home, the buzz had started to spread. First it was an old coworker, Karen from finance, who messaged me, "Mark, what happened? Everyone's saying you nuked the systems." Then another from someone I barely knew in sales, "Respect. You said what we all feel." I finally opened LinkedIn again. That single post I scheduled before leaving the cafe had gone live minutes after the email blast. I kept it short. 20 years. No goodbye. No thanks. I wasn't looking for fireworks, just respect. Sometimes, leaving quietly isn't an option. Not when they try to erase your legacy. It had over 1,000 reactions in an hour. The comments flooded in. Former co-workers. Industry peers. Even competitors. People shared their own stories, being let go without a word, pushed out after decades, discarded for being the old guard. Apparently, I'd hit a nerve. The message from the rival CTO wasn't the only one anymore. There were 3 more offers in my inbox by that evening. One of them doubled my last salary. Another asked if I'd be interested in shaping the culture of a company that doesn't forget who built its foundation. But for the rest of that day, I ignored them. I sat on the porch with my wife. Told her everything. Every detail. She didn't interrupt once. Just held my hand and nodded. When I finished, she said, "You didn't burn the bridge. They never built one in the first place." I slept better that night than I had in years. No alerts. No late-night server crashes. Number 3 a.m. patch calls. Just silence. The kind you earn. The kind that says, "You're done." The next morning, I woke up to a different world. No alarm, no frantic emails, just sunlight streaming through the blinds. My phone was filled with notifications, news alerts, connection requests, even a few interview invitations from companies I'd admired for years. Apparently, someone inside my old company had leaked a screen recording of my farewell video. It was spreading fast, along with the story of what happened. People called me everything from a legend to the patron saint of IT managers. But what mattered most were the quieter messages. Old teammates I hadn't heard from in ages wrote to thank me. Some apologized for not speaking up, or for going along with the charade. A few even admitted they'd been told to stay quiet, to treat me like I was already gone. That hurt, but I understood. Fear makes people do small things. I took the morning slow. Made coffee for my wife. Took our dog for a long walk. The city felt different, like I was seeing it for the first time in years without that invisible weight on my shoulders. Around noon, my phone rang. It was the CTO from the rival company, the first one who'd messaged me. We talked for an hour. Not about systems or migrations or disaster recovery, but about respect, loyalty, and what it means to leave something behind. He said, "We don't want your revenge. We want your wisdom." I said I'd think about it. Before I hung up, he asked, "Any regrets?" I looked out the window, watching people rush to work, faces buried in phones. "Only that I let them take so much for so long," I said. But not anymore. Later that week, I watched the fallout from a distance. The company sent out a limp apology, something about miscommunication and lessons learned. But it didn't matter. People had seen what they needed to see. I was done explaining. My wife and I finally took that cruise. No phone, no laptop. Just open water and clean air. When I got back, I accepted the consulting offer, not because I needed the money, but because I wanted to build something again. This time, I chose the team. I made sure nobody got left behind. I never did get a party. But I got something better. I left on my own terms. And no one, not a single person, will ever erase what I built.